if you're anything like me, the first thing you thought when you heard Down Bad was, oh my god, is Taylor Swift a Trekkie? And she may not be a Trekkie, but she's definitely a fan of sci-fi to some degree, and I think it's very likely that she is a Trekkie, especially during the time when she grew up. Being born a little bit before Taylor Swift, I remember that during the 90s and the early aughts, there were a ton of Star Trek on like late at night if you couldn't sleep, and since she's obviously got a problem with staying up too late, it seems very plausible to me that she stayed up too late watching some Star Trek reruns. But also there's definitely like broader sci-fi and alien abduction themes in here as well. We're going to discuss all of them. So I think she uses these themes two ways. So I think they're used to represent relationships, but I also think they're not used to represent relationships. More broadly, I don't think that this is talking about one specific relationship. I think it's more commonality, shared feelings that she has often felt during breakups. But more than that, I think she often uses relationships as metaphors when she's talking about business and career and things like that, because we can relate to how she feels emotionally with relationships, but we can't necessarily relate to what it feels like to have your master stolen. And I think that she's realized that over the years, and I think that she's also realized that there are some people that kind of view the, oh, master's heist, master's being stolen, as her just being petulant over something that's totally normal in the industry, which honestly, just because something is normalized doesn't necessarily mean that it's okay, and doesn't mean that you shouldn't attack it. You know, you shouldn't try and break down that system, and I definitely think she's a right to try and break down this system. But it's not really something that even a lot of Swifties can relate to, especially younger Swifties. They may not have like a life's work yet to appreciate the concept of having something like that stolen. And even if you do have a wide body of work, it may not be something that is so deeply personal and important to you as Taylor's songs, which a lot of them are therapy in a way for her. They're journalistic in a lot of ways for her. These are things that are very personal to her, and I understand why she doesn't want other people owning them, but that's coming from the perspective of a 40-year-old Swiftie who has already completed one career and is starting another career, and who often thinks a lot about copyright and content and fair use and things like that. These are things that are very much in my wheelhouse, but I understand that for the average Swiftie, they are not. And I think a lot of times in Taylor Swift's songs, she uses romantic relationships as metaphors because she knows that we know, a lot of us know at least, or will know, how romantic relationships feel when they're falling apart, how they feel when you're at their high, things like that. And I think because she has been in both romantic relationships and in her career, she knows when she's felt two emotions that have vaguely been the same. And I think that she uses this knowledge to kind of give us this perspective into fame and being famous. And I think that's why it frustrates me so much that so many people are boiling down TTPD to just being like a Joe album or a Maddie album or whoever you think this album is about. And now, like, there are a lot of Swifties that are like, oh yes, I can see through the facade. These songs are actually about Taylor. And I think that's important too. But I think if you only think a Taylor Swift song is about one thing, you probably only grasp maybe a half to a third to a quarter of what that song is about. Because in my experience, nearly every song, especially the songs in her later career when she knows her style, when she knows herself, when she's got her symbolism and everything in place, nearly every line has 2, 3, 4 different layered lines of meaning. And I think Down Bad is a good example of this. Down Bad is not only a breakup song, but it's also a when you're down bad in your career, when you've previously been at highs, when you've previously sacrificed so much for this career. If you're not new to this channel, you know that I personally bearded for like 20 years for my career, and it was hard. And from that perspective, it's definitely very relatable to understand some of the struggles that Taylor has felt with her career, because I know this idea of sacrificing my love for my career, because I have this idea that my career is what's important, and that as soon as I have career success, I won't even care that I don't have my lover anymore. Again, these are perspectives that like a lot of Swifties can't necessarily share. Swifties that currently can't make their bills may not necessarily relate to this idea of regretting putting your career first the same way that people like I do. And I understand that. And I think that's why there are some people that absolutely get Taylor's work and they can put themselves in Taylor's position and they understand the metaphors and how they're being used. And even if they haven't gone through those circumstances, they get it. And other people just cannot become Swifties because they fundamentally have not been in a position where they can really relate to those feelings or emotions. And a lot of times our society devalues having emotions like this. Now let's jump into science fiction and the song. So science fiction in a lot of ways, and especially Star Trek, is about trying to make metaphors about current society in a society that is like futuristic or different from ours in some alien way, so that we can kind of step away, take ourselves out of current day problems and see them from a more objective place. it can be hard when something is a current big issue to see it from any perspective other than the perspective that you currently have. And Star Trek had this way of putting other characters in situations that were kind of the same but kind of different, and giving people outside perspective on their own lives by doing that. And I think that's one of the things that Taylor is doing with this song. And Taylor, in a lot of her work, seems to be trying to do the same thing that the Romantic poets were trying to do: enact social change, make things more acceptable by making the art and the music and the creative life about those things. During an era when there is a lot of political pressure against LGBTQ people, for example, a lot of artists are making lyrics that explicitly include the community, or explicitly including their community as starting acts and things like that. In doing that, it really helps to normalize both LGBTQ people and the fact that they have needs that should be listened to. And I think that's one of the reasons why I'm so drawn to Down Bad, because I love a lot of the ways that this metaphor is being used. So first off, it's being used from the opposite perspective, because normally we are on the side of Kirk or Riker or something like that. We are on the side of the ruggedly handsome man who goes down to this planet of people who are like at a Victorian tech level, who don't really have a lot of like scientific belief and who largely are very superstitious. There's one girl, and she's beautiful and she's kind and she's an ingenue, and she tellingly is the only person on this planet who doesn't have these superstitious beliefs. Like, everyone else on this planet believes that shoes are going to damn you to the eternity of hells, but she's the one person who's like, yes, actually shoes are good for your feet and I think we should wear them. And that gives us the impression as an audience that she is on the same emotional level and power level and like technical level, that she is equal with these men in any way, because we want to believe that unequal relationships are okay, and that so long as they're kind of equal on some like mental level, it's fine. But is it really fine though? Taylor is giving us this other perspective. This woman who has met this man that is unlike anything she could have ever imagined, has experienced a world that has technology and beliefs and things like that she could have only dreamed of, and then she falls in love with this person. It's probably just lust or limerence or something along those lines, and then they leave her because, oh, it's better for you, it's to keep you safe, you're not ready for this, your people aren't at a point. Why are you sleeping with her? The more I reflect on these relationships from the perspective of the woman in the situation, the more I'm like, ew, actually that is kind of a little yucky. Is she really in a situation where she is knowingly able to accept this? And here is why I think this is so important that Taylor has used this metaphor. Because I think a lot of times we believe that if there's a celebrity woman and a celebrity man in a relationship, regardless of other factors like the size of the celebrity, like the age, like money and all of that, that's equal because it's celebrity and celebrity. And I think that's the light that a lot of people have analyzed Taylor Swift's relationships themselves from this belief that, oh, Taylor was in a one-on-one power relationship with these other people because they're both celebrities. And maybe now she's at that point in her career, and now she's at the point where she's dating somebody that's a little bit less famous than her, or something along those lines. But early on in her career, just because she was famous and they were famous, Jake Gyllenhaal, John Mayer, they were men that were very established in their career. They were older, they had a lot more money, they had a lot more power and connections in the industry. And a lot of times, I don't necessarily think until very recently that we really looked at those relationships through the right light. So I do think that part of this song, and part of the reason why I don't necessarily believe that it's like just Joe or just Maddie or whatever like that, is because I believe that part of the thing that is being discussed is this power dynamic, age dynamic, things like that were inherent in her early relationships especially. But also with regards to the Masters heist, just because she was Taylor Swift and she was famous and, her family had some power and some money, didn't put her on the same level with these men who were selling these, were buying these, who were taking advantage of her, her diaristic works. Is diaristic a word? Diaristic, I'm using it to mean diary, not diarrhea. I just want to make sure everyone's clear on that. And let's look at the lyrics. Did you really beam me up in a cloud of sparkling dust? I think this is the most telling and most pointed Star Trek reference. A lot of other things point other directions, but I do think that the relationships in Star Trek in particular are a good encapsulation of the phenomenon that she's trying to discuss here. Just to do experiments on, tell me I was the chosen one. Show me that this world is bigger than us, then send me back where I came from a moment I knew cosmic love. So again, like I'm saying, you're taking this young woman who is an ingenue, who has not experienced much. You are telling her that because she is like so much better than the other people in her world, at least for Riker and Kirk's sense, or whoever the man in this equation is, that she is something special and important and stuff like that. And it's interesting because I don't necessarily think that they are intending to love bomb these women, but we know that's what they're doing. Especially because we know a lot of them, their intentions are never to stick around. And a lot of these women come from cultures that seem to be prioritizing monogamy or long-term relationships, or at least a certain seriousness to relationships. And then they come along and they don't necessarily play on the same rules. And they also tellingly don't necessarily make it clear that things may not be the same in the Federation, that it's not necessarily long-term monogamy for the large majority of people that are in higher up positions in Starfleet like that. And just the whiplash that you feel in those type of situations, and just the like inability to understand yourself, because at first you were told, oh, you're great, you're chosen, you're important, all of these things, but then very shortly after, in a lot of cases, a matter of months to a matter of years, you were told, oh, no, I was mistaken, you're not that. And a lot of times these people feel so like guilty on some level about what they have done that they then have to make it about you. Like, you have all of these flaws. That's the reason the relationship doesn't work. And you kind of believe that. You assume that this person, as soon as they got to know you, they like, ooh, yucky. But realistically, that's just because we categorize normal human feelings and emotions as icky. So like, if you get too close to anybody, you're probably going to have an icky unless you're very determined to overcome that icky. Unless you are too at the point where you share that icky. Let's go to midway through the chorus. Staring at the sky, come back and pick me up. So we never really get to see the aftermath, especially the immediate aftermath of these relationships in science fiction. We very, very, very rarely do. But I can only assume, based on how I felt in the immediate aftermath of relationships, that they feel pretty bad, and they're probably like, come back, meet me up. Like, it's probably not a good situation. It only makes the people around you like, ooh, what is wrong, girl? You know? Then the next verse, did you take all of my old clothes, just leave me here naked and alone, in a field in my same old town that somehow seems so hollow now. They'll say I'm nuts if I talk about the existence of you. For a moment, I was heaven struck. I love that Taylor switches to a more like classical alien abduction scenario in this verse, right? Because I do think that it's going to give some people the impression that it's not about Star Trek or Star Trek type things at all, because some people are going to read it at that level, and I guess that's fine. But when I sat and thought with it more, I thought about, yes, this is being written from the perspective of the woman and the people that she is surrounded by. If you were the woman in this scenario, all of the people around you would probably view Starfleet, the Federation, Riker, Kirk as aliens who came down to do experiments on you and then leave. Like, if from the other perspective, the metaphor still works. And this is something that was experimented with in the DS9 episode, Little Green Men, if I'm not mistaken. We do it with Quark and his lot for that episode, but tellingly, I think it applies even when they look just like us too. Then the next verse. I loved your hostile takeovers, encounters closer and closer, all your indecent exposures. How dare that you say that it's blank. So first, the word that's blank there. We are led to assume that it's over, but I want to play around with rhyming scheme and see if there's another word that hits there better, because I find it telling that she's not put it there. I do think it's like she doesn't even want to speak the word that it's over because she doesn't want to admit it to herself. I think that is a very good take to have there, but I think tellingly there's probably a reason why she didn't complete that sentence. Anyway, let's take it back a couple of lines. Obviously, a Closer Encounters reference to kind of tie it back to this broader theme of sci-fi. But hostile takeovers can be taken in a lot of ways. Sure, in the like starships are pew-pewing at each other sense, but also in the business sense, and the hostile takeover of somebody's business, hostile purchasing of somebody's music rights, perhaps. And finally, in the kind of relationship sense, when you like don't necessarily want to be in a relationship with somebody, but they like wear you down. It can feel like a hostile takeover. It can feel like a hostile takeover of your own mind and thought and feelings, and I wonder to what degree Taylor has felt this. I'll build you a fort on some planet where they can all understand it. How dare you think it's romantic, leaving me safe and stranded. So I think this applies in a lot of different ways. So how many times have you been in a relationship and somebody broke up with you for your own good? And you're like, you don't get to make decisions for me. I decide what is my own good. But also, I have suspected for a while that Scott Swift has known more about the Master's heist than he has led on to, and I think some of the questionable parental older man themes that come through in her work are part of that, and I think this may also be a reference to Scott thinking Taylor is silly to care about owning her stuff. What matters is the money. She can always make more songs. I could see Scott doing that, thinking it was in the best interests of Taylor. You can also think a lot of times about Riker or Kirk or, whoever is going down to this planet. Oh, I can't take you with me. It's, if you prime directive, if you see the future, if you see these things, it's gonna break you, la da 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 da. You knew that from the beginning, sir. You should have not gone into that situation knowing that. This is a you problem, this is not a her problem. Don't push that on her. Don't say that you're making her safe. Say that you knew better and you still did it and you're a bad man. Thank you, sir. I think there are so many times that people in our lives do things what they think is for our best interests. And yes, if they are people who are actually our friends and actually care about us and our well-being, they will think about these things from a perspective of our well-being. But a lot of times these people don't have a genuine love for us. They want to possess us, they want to control us, and they use giving us advice as a way to kind of control us without actually controlling us. And unfortunately, it's very difficult, especially in the moment, to identify what type of people you have in your life. And sometimes you just have to take the L and be like, I misjudged. I trust somebody that I shouldn't have. And sometimes you trust somebody and that person changes. Sometimes exposure to another significant other causes them to change themselves. I'm very curious what other people's thoughts about Down Bad are. I love the song. If you are new here, I believe that the film Dead Poets Society was designed to play in conjunction with TTPD, just played in reverse. I'm working on a full video about that, but Down Bad comes into play in a very interesting way. I'm gonna link a video to that down below. It's just a short 3-minute video to whet your appetite for what I have for you in the future. If you like this, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I have done a full video on TTPD if you'd like to hear my full thoughts on that. And I'm probably gonna do more single song-based analysis and single theory-based analysis. So if you're interested in that stuff, it will be here soon.